Hello and welcome to the Cloud Native Partner Showcase Series. My name is David Giard. I'm a partner solution architect with Microsoft. And on this show, we highlight our partners who are building great applications and services for themselves and for their customers using Azure Kubernetes Service. Today, we have Sudeep from Traefik Labs. Hello, Sudeep. How are you, sir?
Hi, David. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Tell me a bit about yourself and about Traefik Labs.
Yeah, so I'm CEO at Traefik Labs. What we provide is a API and AI infrastructure that allows enterprises to expose and secure their APIs and AI models that are also increasingly becoming APIs.
Excellent. And I understand that you're building a solution that uses Azure Kubernetes Service. Can you tell me a little about what the problem that solution is trying to solve?
Yeah, we provide a Kubernetes native infrastructure solution that runs natively inside of AKS. And what that allows customers to do is if they already have applications, cloud native applications that they're running inside of AKS, what our solution does is sits on top of that and exposes those applications securely as APIs to the outside world.
Great. Tell me a little about the key features or capabilities that Traffic Labs is using to integrate most closely with AKS.
Yeah, so the three things I would say that comes up over and over again that we provide that enterprises love. Number one is freedom of choice. Everyone is designing a hybrid multi-cloud strategy. So they don't want to be locked in on the infrastructure layers that they're building. So obviously, Azure Kubernetes Service is a great layer to start your Kubernetes journey on and where you can bring in applications. But then the layer above that, what's called a API gateway or an AI gateway or an API management gateway layer, customers want that to be decoupled from the AKS layer. And this is where the freedom of choice comes in because they can make that layer portable across many different environments, whether they have a cloud strategy, whether they have an on-prem strategy or a hybrid cloud strategy. That layer stays agnostic. That's a consistent operating model that they can run. So freedom of choice is number one on the list of things that they look for. Uh, it's no surprise that Kubernetes has become the de facto kind of orchestrator for deploying cloud native apps. So any solution is really almost a mandate now from customers for them to have a Kubernetes native layer sitting on top of any AKS layer. And this is where our gateway layer, being Kubernetes native, just fits right in to their existing way of operating their infrastructure, which is point number two. And we make it super easy to deploy this directly from the Azure Marketplace directly into AKS. And we'll talk more about that when we show the demo. And the third is infrastructure as code being the operating kind of principle that is being embraced by major enterprises across the world. Infrastructure as code started mostly with, I would say, first level primitives like networking, storage, compute. But now infrastructure as code has permeated into many other layers of what's still considered infrastructure, but there are higher layers of infrastructure. Whether you're deploying AKS, you want to do that as code. Whether you want to deploy the gateway layer or the API management layer, that is also being deployed as code. So infra as code across the layers of your kind of environment is point number three. So when you look at all these three things in total, these are the compelling drivers why customers are moving towards a solution like Traefik running natively inside of AKS.
It sounds pretty amazing. And you mentioned a demo. I would love to see it in action.
All right, let's do it.
In this video, I'll show you how to install traffic to manage your API landscape on AKS. In this demo, you'll see a snapshot of the entire traffic runtime platform. We'll start with deploying Traffic Proxy on AKS, and then we'll upgrade to Traffic Hub, adding API Gateway and finally API management capabilities seamlessly. This illustrates how traffic grows with you at each stage of your API journey. To get started, let's navigate to traffic.io/Microsoft and click Deploy Traffic on AKS. This will take us to the Traffic AKS Marketplace offering page. Click on Get It Now and fill in the required information. After selecting the AKS cluster where you want to deploy traffic, hit Create. This may take a few minutes. Once the installation is done, we'll be able to access our traffic dashboard. Let's clone the Traefik Airlines demo repository and deploy the customers, employees, flights, and tickets microservices to our cluster using kubectl. As we apply the routes for each of our microservices, you can see them populating in the Traefik dashboard. We'll now use the Azure CLI to update our traffic configuration to create a Traefik Airlines certificate resolver. The certificate resolver allows us to auto-generate TLS certificates to protect our APIs using the Let's Encrypt ACME challenge. Traefik will utilize the host value for our route to generate the required certificates. We can now see the routes being updated with the TLS logo in the Traefik dashboard. Let's test the routes we just created using curl. Success! We're getting 200s from all our microservices on the HTTPS protocol. Next, let's add OAuth 2.0 security to our APIs. To do so, we must upgrade Traefik Proxy to an API gateway. It's seamless and will only take a few seconds. To upgrade, we first need to generate a token that's available after purchasing the license and then using that token to upgrade Traefik Proxy to the Traefik Hub API gateway. Navigate to hub.traefik.io/dashboard and click on Create a new gateway. Copy the kubectl create secret command and click on Configuration Done. Then paste the command in your terminal to create the token secret. Now we can upgrade our instance using the Azure CLI. We can now see that our gateway is online and connected to our Traefik Hub instance. A quick page refresh will take us to the Traefik Hub dashboard. Now that we're up and running with the Traefik Hub API gateway, let's explore the Giard middleware. You can see that it's using the Microsoft JSON Web Token Key Set URL. This means that we can now access the API if we have a Microsoft account with valid Entra ID application credentials. Let's update our routes to utilize the Giard middleware and test our APIs. You can see that our calls are now being blocked due to a 401 error, which is the HTTP code for unauthorized requests. Let's now generate a Giard token using the client credential OAuth 2.0 flow and use it to access our APIs. Our calls are now successful with a 200 response code. Just as we did before, let's upgrade our instance to add API management capabilities and unlock the full suite of features Traefik offers. This will allow us to deploy a set of Kubernetes custom resource definitions, or CRDs, to manage our routes as APIs. The API CRD automatically adds authentication and authorization to APIs. It can also manage CORS rules. To connect a route to an API, you simply need to add an annotation to the route definition. The API plan CRD allows us to manage rate limits and quotas for the API users. Different plans can enforce different limits. Lastly, the API catalog item defines the visibility of APIs on the developer portal. You can choose to have the item accessible to everyone or specify the groups that should see and request those APIs through the developer portal. After upgrading, you'll notice the API gateway kind changes from API gateway to API management. So we're ready to deploy our resources and view them on the Traefik Hub dashboard. When checking out the Flights API, notice that it's part of two API catalog items, where each API catalog item provides a different plan for consuming the APIs that are associated. Now we can look at the API plans and see the 4 plans that we added with the different rate limits and quota configurations. And lastly, here are the API catalog items with the same configuration we saw in the YAML files. And now if we try to gain access to our APIs with the same Giard token we used before, we won't be allowed. This is because Traefik is now applying authorization on top of the authentication. That's why we get a 403 error. To set up our access, we must connect Traefik with the Entra ID application. For this demo, we created an Entra ID application, and we are going to use the client ID, client secret, and Microsoft Tenant ID to connect Traefik to Entra ID. Next, we will apply the Developer Portal CRD to allow us to access the portal through single sign-on with Microsoft Entra ID. Okay, now we have access to the Developer Portal. Let's create an application to manage our API subscriptions. We want to subscribe to the Flights API, but before we do, let's test access to the API and validate that we will get a 403 response. As expected, we got a 403. So now let's subscribe to the Flights API and test it again. We now have access to our microservices with granular authorization applied through Traefik. You can also see our rate limiting and quota management headers being displayed in the response. Finally, now that we have made some requests through our platform, we can view those requests through the Traefik Hub UI Treble integration. While Traefik supports OpenTelemetry with logs, metrics, and traces out of box, Treble enhances the observability and governance of your API landscape through features like API security and compliance scores. Thank you for watching our demo. To test drive Traefik and AKS for yourself, visit traefik.io/Microsoft.
That was really impressive. Now, you talked about the automated deployment using infrastructure as code, but once it's deployed, you want to manage the complexity of it. What are you doing in terms of monitoring and alerting within your AKS environments?
Yeah, so let me just recap what you saw in the demo, which is a very, very high level recap. What you saw in there are these three broad steps in the journey of a user going through their API maturity cycle. Starting with number one, where you saw deploying an application proxy, which is a reverse proxy and an ingress controller directly inside of AKS. And then what you saw in the demo was upgrading to an API gateway and then to an API management layer. And this is more of a bird's eye view of all of the different capabilities that you have in there. Now, coming back to your question around monitoring and visibility and let's just say day two ops, broadly speaking, we support natively a rich set of open standards. The most, I would say, popular these days being open telemetry. And what that allows you to do is to export rich metrics, logs, and traces from our gateway directly into a third-party tool that is designed to consume them, ingest them, and to be able to display them to the user. So we don't lock people in with any kind of proprietary ways of monitoring and troubleshooting. I think OpenTelemetry has become the de facto standard. In addition to that, we also provide a rich set of logging capabilities that the user can see to kind of really drill down on what is happening with their infrastructure.
One of the advantages of AKS is it gives you the ability to run scalable and reliable applications. Can you speak a little bit about how your application uses the features of AKS to make it more scalable and reliable?
Absolutely. I think this is where the cube native nature of our solution fits right into the AKS way of doing things. Let's take auto scaling, for example. If you were not a kube native solution and if you were deploying an AKS, then the way you would create auto scaling would be different than how Kubernetes natively does it through HPA, through the horizontal autoscaler or the pod scaler mechanism. And this is where the way Traefik integrates natively with AKS, you can just create your auto scaling policies natively in Kubernetes, and Traefik just absorbs that and honors that principle. So you can define it based on many different parameters. If it's based on performance, based on CPU footprint, memory footprint, it can just auto scale on demand as you want. So there is no extra proprietary layer that you have to build on top of AKS.
I love it. Is this in production? Are customers using this today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this
What
is
feedback you got back from
for a long time. And we have been on the AKS marketplace for a while. I think this is where we see a lot of traction. People starting with open source, as you see in the first column, which actually has a very rich set of capabilities if you kind of look through the list, including open telemetry support. So this is a day two ops ready open source step one journey. And then when users want to get more additional kind of, as you saw in the demo, when users want to get centralized authentication, centralized authorization, they want an AI gateway, they want more security functionality, then they progress to the right sites. But all of this has been in production for quite some time. And users love the fact that they can get it from AKS Marketplace with the click of a button.
This is a lot of features. I see you've got some new features flagged in here. Is it done? Are you finished, or do you have things on your roadmap coming up?
We're never finished. I think this space is moving extremely fast. And I think, as you also know, with specifically in the realm of AI gateway, there's lots of active things happening. So we're not done by any stretch of the imagination, but what we have is a very comprehensive feature set for customers to start on this journey. And then we're going to continue to evolve and innovate and bring out new features. As the market evolves, as new tooling comes out, new technology comes out, our job is to make sure that we are curating all of that and presenting them as in a very enterprise grade day two ops friendly packaging to our customers.
Awesome. Any final thoughts before we wrap up that you want to share?
I think this is what I would want to end with is this is not just what we are hearing at Traefik. This is what we're hearing from many other industry leaders. These are the three broad guiding principles that are driving a lot of decision making at the C level. And this is what I would want to emphasize. If you are looking for freedom of choice, if you're looking for a cube native solution, if you are looking to elevate your operating kind of model with infrastructure as code as the guiding principle, you should definitely look at us and deploy us through the AKS marketplace.
That is a great place to close. Sudeep, I really appreciate your time today. I've learned something new, and folks at home, I appreciate you tuning in.